Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to answer a lot of your questions that you have asked me on my Instagram. So here is question one. It's a very common question I get. I get asked how tall is Piper. I've actually never measured her, but I think she's about 16'1". She's 10 and she is a Trakehner. How many horses do I own? Between my husband and I think we have about 11. That number changes. We get some projects in and out that we train and then sell. We've got a few of those that we're actually getting ready to sell right now. What's my favorite breed of horse? My favorite breed of horse is any horse that wants to jump and run, and I love them. It doesn't matter what breed, thoroughbred, Trakehner, warm blood, quarter horse, I don't care. If they want to jump, I want to ride them. What do I think about gaited horses? They're not my favorite just typically because they don't typically like to jump or jump very high. Or super well. You'll never see a gaited horse, or at least I have never seen, pretty sure there hasn't been, a horse at the upper levels of any jumping competition and it being a gaited horse. So that's just my personal preference. I like horses that jump, and so therefore I don't tend to like gaited horses. When did I start riding horses? I actually grew up on a farm, and so I've been riding horses my whole entire life. Why do I choose to introduce a lot of things to my horses online as opposed to riding? Well, when it comes to obstacles, specifically jumps, with young horses or difficult horses, I like to do it for multiple reasons. One, it's a great confidence builder for them to be able to jump something on their own without somebody on their back. When a horse is a bit unconfident about jumping something, they tend to over jump it or do a funny jump, and as a rider, it's really easy to accidentally be in the way when they do that. And so when you teach a horse online to jump, you're out of the way when things get a little funny, and it's easier to support them on the ground. What is the hardest part of riding for me? That I would say probably controlling my body. It doesn't always do what I want it to do when I want it to do it, and that can be very frustrating. I know what I want to do, I know what I should be doing, and sometimes I just cannot get my body to do exactly what I need it to do, whether it's fitness or flexibility or just not really being able to move that way. That can be really hard for me and very frustrating. I'm sure you guys don't know anything about that, but it could be not very fun sometimes. How did I start out to be a horse trainer? I've actually been training horses for quite a long time. Like I said earlier, I grew up on a farm, and I started training in Pirelli and going to the ranch, Pirelli's ranch, when I was 9, and then by the time I was 14, I would do 2 months in the summer, a month in the winter. I actually graduated high school early at 17 and went to work for Pat Pirelli, who's my uncle, full-time. And I actually did some training professionally for people before that, before I went to work with him full-time. But then after I worked with him, and then I went out on my own, that's how I became a trainer and a clinician. And that's the path I chose. Is instead of going to college, I went to horse college. How much do I ride? I try to ride as much as possible. It's not always possible because I live in Colorado and the weather doesn't always grant me that ability. I do not have an indoor. Maybe someday I will. But I almost ride every day. I cycle through horses. Sometimes I only ride one horse a day, depending on what's going on. Kind of 1 up to about 6, I would say, is can be anywhere between average. But I like to ride as much as possible. Have I ever been to Europe? No. I did go to England several years ago for a very short stay. I was doing something with Pirelli. I did not get to tour around at all. But I would love to go over to Europe, England, all those places. So if you ever want me to clinic there, contact me. We can work it out. What do I do with a horse that has extreme bit evasion? One of the biggest things that I do with them first is I start having them wear it all the time, like when I'm playing with them on the ground and stuff like that, and not use it. And I actually will then even ride them with it on, but I'll have a halter or something underneath to where they're just carrying it all the time and just fully, truly actually accepting just wearing it first. A lot of horses aren't accepting just even wearing the bridle before people are using it. A lot of problems can come in there, and sometimes that can solve a lot of problems just by allowing the horse to wear it to the point where it's completely normal and consistent for them, and then start introducing actually using the bridle and teaching them to yield to it, to come into it, and to frame up and stuff like that. How do I keep groundwork or round pen work interesting? The biggest thing is having it change and being progressive. A lot of people have a set thing of what they do in a round pen. That's all they know how to do. So they just do the same things over and over again, and therefore it's not fun for the horse, and it actually becomes unfun for the human. because a lot of times the horses will start getting more resistant because they're bored or just frustrated. Being progressive with the horses is really important, and that's how you keep it fun and interesting for them. If they're learning even just something a little bit new every day, it helps engage their brain. And so it's a challenge for us to make sure that we have a big enough repertoire of things we can teach and progress with a horse to help keep it fun for them. And if not, we need to get ourselves more educated, whether it's going to a clinic, even going online and finding stuff to teach them or something like that. Just always being progressive with ourselves so we can be progressive with our horses. How and why I went to Florida and how I was able to stay there for a couple months. The how and why is kind of combined. The why is because that's where David and Karen O'Connor live, and they invited me to train with them, and so that's why I went out there. I'm very blessed to have relatives that live out there, so I was able to stay with my relatives and then work on David and Karen's ranch. It worked out that Karen came and did a clinic a few years ago. I rode in the clinic, and after the clinic she invited me to come ride with them whenever I could, and so I took them up on the opportunity, and they haven't been able to get rid of me since. For the last 3 winters I've gone there and trained with them, so that's why I go there. How often should a horse be in a stall? I'm a personal believer of I like a horse to be out as much as possible. It's not always a possibility depending on where you're boarding your horse and what your situation is. But horses are meant to move, and I think it's the healthiest thing for them to move as much as possible. So I like big pastures. I don't personally have a big pasture for my horses. They're all out in pens. I do have a small barn that I need to if I need to stall rest something or, something like that. But most of the time they're just out in big pens with each other. I would prefer bigger pastures. We're hopefully working on fencing to do that in the future. But I like a horse to move as much as possible. What do I do with horses that are nervous or get a little overexcited with jumping and stuff like that? One is I do like to play with them a lot on the ground and get some relaxation. Sometimes it can be accidentally caused by a bit of a tight ride, or because the horse gets a little tight and then we get tight and then they get even more anxious. So by working with them on the ground, it helps eliminate the possible influence of riding being a part of the issue. Do that, and then I also like to walk over poles and walk over small jumps and things like that. I want my horse to be able to walk over, up to it, over, and walk away from it. Even little tiny jumps. You'll be surprised how many jumping horses cannot simply just walk over a jump. It's really good just getting that complete relaxation that you should be able to be on a loose rein and walk over a fence of small height. Nothing big, just 12 inches and lower. Nothing too wide, but every horse should be able to do that, and it helps sometimes calm horses down. So that's one strategy that I use for horses that can be impulsive about jumping. Hey everybody, thank you all so much for your great questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the answers. See you next time.